my sleepy nights. And tonight, join me as we travel back in time to the Scottish Highlands, where 3 druids summon ancient power to unlock a mystical portal. But will their ritual bring wisdom or sorrow? The first rays of dawn crested over the eastern hills, bathing the highlands of Scotland in a soft golden glow. As the light spilled across the landscape, it revealed a terrain both beautiful and untamed. Craggy peaks jutted towards the clouds, their stony faces scarred by centuries of wind and rain. In the valleys below, wisps of mist clung to the mirrored surfaces of glass-still lochs. Ancient forests clustered in hollows, and along the feet of mountains, pine and oak standing guard over the wild creatures who dwelt within. This was a domain shaped as much by the hands of nature as those of man. Scattered across the land stood circles of towering granite slabs, aligned to celestial movements ages ago. Some were still used by the druids today to observe the dance of sun, moon, and stars. The very earth thrummed with currents of energy. A deep pulse akin to a heartbeat, felt more than heard. Magic dwelled here, flowing through bedrock and loam, waiting to be harnessed by those adept in the old ways. 3 clans held sway over these lands under the guidance of the druids. The clan Gordon, ruthless and warlike, dominated by the northernmost glens. To the south stood the lands of Clan Mackay, known for cunning and mysticism. Between them lay Clan Campbell, stewards of the sacred groves at their realm's heart. Uneasy peace had long reigned, each clan keeping to ancient boundaries. But there had been periods of conflict, dark chapters whispered of, but seldom spoken aloud. Some wounds lingered beneath the rugged beauty and tranquility on the surface. The druids strove to maintain harmony, though fractures had emerged in recent times. But the celestial alignments soon approaching promised either unity or deeper fractures still. In a secluded glen stood Dun Allen, stronghold and sanctuary of the druids. Within its stone halls, the council of elders had gathered at the golden oak table. Caelum, a sharp-featured man with hair and beard the colour of iron, stood with his hands braced on the table. His piercing blue eyes reflected the restless energy that seemed to charge the very air around him. "Brothers and sisters," he began, "the time we have waited for 7 long years will soon be upon us. When Rua Dalak aligns with the constellation of the Stag, the Moorside elixir can be brewed once more." Murmurs rippled around the table. The sacred elixir was said to open one's inner eye to visions and unlock deeper communion with the spirits of the land. But the required astral alignment came only once every 7 years. Caelum continued, "We must prepare the rituals and gather the herbs necessary for the ceremony. Those visions will reveal much about the path ahead for our people and this realm." Beside Caelum, Moros listened with a furrowed brow, absently stroking his braided silver beard. Where Caelum radiated enthusiastic energy, Moros had an aura of solemn restraint. "Indeed, the elixir ritual holds profound meaning," Moros rumbled. "But we must approach with care and consideration. Powerful tools demand great wisdom in their use." His eyes were distant, as if glimpsing past memory. Caelum turned, a hint of sharpness in his voice. "Of course, brother. All knowledge brings obligation. But we cannot afford to let doubt make us hesitant." Tension crackled between the 2 senior druids. Their contrasting temperaments had caused strife before. But before more could be said, a melodious voice interjected. "My friends, surely we both need bold vision and wise caution in equal measure." All eyes turned to Eilidh, a willowy woman with flowing auburn hair. The tattoos of oak leaves framing her face marked her as a druidess. Though the youngest on the council, she often acted as a mediator between diverging views. Her gifts of empathy and intuition were highly valued. "Well said, Eilidh," Caelum replied, softening. "Forgive my impatience. I only mean we must act decisively when the time comes to interpret the elixir's gift. The future course of our realm hangs in the balance." Moros nodded slowly, the creases in his brow easing. "You speak truth, brother. We each have a role to play in what is to come." He extended his hand, and Caelum clasped it firmly. Eilidh smiled. The tension diffused. For now, unity remained intact. But the 3 elders knew it was only the calm before the gathering storm ahead. The night sky swirled, with the violet hues of Ruadalak intersected by the shimmering stag constellation, signalling the long-awaited alignment. Within the stone circle known as the Ring of Caelum, the druids had gathered, faces lit by the flickering glow of the central fire. The air hummed with anticipation for the ritual ahead. At the circle's head stood Caelum and Moros, robes adorned with symbols. Between them was a granite basin filled with a dark liquid, the brewed essence of rarer herbs infused with elderflower and peat smoke. This was the legendary Moorsight elixir bestowed upon the druids of old. Caelum lifted the ceremonial dagger from the altar and turned to face the assembly. Tonight, we shall partake of the elixir our ancestors once used to gain insight and commune with the spirits of rock, stream, and tree. Let its vision expand our sight to that which lies beyond the horizon. Moros stepped forward, lifting the drinking horn that would bear the sacramental draught. His voice carried outward. To drink the elixir is to link with all those who came before under sky, stars, and moon. May we use its gifts wisely and justly for the good of all. Eilidh began a rhythmic chant in the elder tongue, initiating the ritual. The other druids joined in, their voices blending until the very air seemed to vibrate. She moved gracefully around the circle, sprinkling dried herbs into the fire, so their aromatic smoke drifted over the participants, cleansing body and spirit. Her melodious words travelled with the fragrant smoke. Breath of earth, breath of sky, open mind and spirit's eye. Once complete, she took up the ceremonial drum and began a steady trance-inducing beat. Moros lifted the drinking horn from the altar and nodded solemnly to Caelum. With great care, Caelum tipped the basin and filled the horn with a shimmering amber liquid. The surface swirled slowly, as if endowed with inner life. Caelum brought the horn first to his own lips and took a long drink. His eyes flashed silver and his body tensed as the elixir took hold with startling speed. After a long moment, he passed the horn to Moros, clasping his shoulder briefly in brotherhood. Moros drank deeply and shuddered as the elixir flowed through him. Eilidh kept drumming as she led the other participants forward to share in the mystical sacrament. One by one, Their eyes took on a faraway sheen as each druid's consciousness expanded outward, connecting with the unseen web, linking all living things seen and unseen. For a timeless interval, they communed with spirits primal and ancient, glimpsing fragments of past and future. As the last one returned from the elixir's realm, Eilidh gently brought the drumming to a close. Caelum and Moros stood with their heads bowed. Soon they would share what revelations had come to guide the realm's destiny. But none could foresee just how deeply their interpretations would diverge. In the days following the ritual, disputes began to fester around Caelum and Moros's differing interpretations of the visions bestowed by the elixir. Caelum spoke fervently of a glowing circle of towering stones, perfectly aligned between stars, moon, and sun's path, a celestial gateway and focal point to channel the natural magic of the land for the benefit of all. But Moros expressed grave doubts, speaking of power begging for righteous purpose and past efforts that ended in sorrow. A philosophical clash threatened the council's fragile unity. Meanwhile, the clans grew fractious, some siding with one elder, others with the opposing view. Eilidh intervened once more, imploring them to share further and seek common understanding. And so, Caelum and Moros related deeper details of their visions. Caelum told of guides in shimmering mist form showing him an empty heather-covered plain. There, in his mind's eye, gleamed a perfect circle of soaring megaliths, symbols ablaze along their surfaces, crackling with energy that promised protection and prosperity for the clans. The celestial circle shall be our link between the realm of spirit and the mortal plane. We must make it manifest. But Moros recalled elixir visions from 7 years past, suddenly overlaid with the new. The same glowing megaliths, strewn in broken ruin amid weeping mourners, a stark warning against grave mistake once repeated. We meddled with forces beyond our knowing and paid the price. I fear this vision shows fresh sorrow if we do not heed the past's lessons. Eilidh listened thoughtfully before sharing an insight. Could the circle represent balance between opposing forces, rather than a structure of stone? Perhaps the elixir offers guidance on maintaining harmony during coming trials. The two men fell silent, contemplating her words. At last, Caelum sighed. Wise as ever, sister. The vision's meaning is yet unclear. We must seek further wisdom from the land itself. Moros nodded solemnly, Their course was set. The three elders, accompanied by their trusted inner circle members, began a journey across the Highlands, visiting groves, circles, pools and cairns where elemental magic concentrated. At each site, Caelum would choose a new stone to bring back for their new celestial circle. According to Caelum, tapping into the primal energy and channeling it properly would determine whether the celestial circle would prove boon or bane. But Moros remained wary of manipulating too much power at once. He advocated gradual, measured use to minimize unintended consequences. Their debates grew heated at times, each believing deeply in their approach. Eilidh meditated with compassion and insight, helping them find common ground. At Bridges Well, a site sacred to earth energy, she knelt amongst the carved stones arrayed around the burbling spring. Placing her hands upon the moss-covered ground, she attuned to the cleansing vibration rising from roots and bedrock. The land welcomes our respectful call, but warns discipline, and care be applied, lest imbalance brings darkness up from deep places, she told the men. They heeded her words and gathered only what earth magic was needed. At the Glen of the Mists, shrouded in perpetual fog, the druids approached the placid loch reverently. This was a font of elemental water, to be accessed sparingly and only for good purpose. Moros knelt on the mist-wreathed shore, waving his hand over the glassy surface while chanting softly. Gradually, slender tendrils of mist lifted from the surface and wove between his fingers. He deftly shaped them into Celtic knots as a test of control before releasing the weaving back to dissolve over the water. The lake spirits are strong but restless here, Moros told the others. Caelum prepared to summon more mist for practice, but Eilidh halted him. Patience, brother. Let us not overreach. He nodded and withdrew. Balance maintained. So it went at each sacred site. Caelum sought to push further. Moros urged restraint, and Eilidh guided them to find harmony between. Skills grew, but so did the schism between philosophies. A confrontation neared, one rooted in the distant past. The final site on their mystical journey lay miles from any village or keep, deep within a mist-cloaked vale. Only the druids recalled what lay hidden there. A lone granite monolith, surrounded by 5 smaller stones. All markings long ago worn away by wind and rain. Caelum's gaze fixed on the central pillar, and his expression turned grave. Moros watched his fellow elder closely, brow furrowed. know this place, Caelum, but its meaning has been lost to others over time, Moros said. The younger druids looked on curiously. Caelum stepped forward and placed a weathered hand on the central stone as if greeting an old friend. I had hoped never to return here. This site carries heavy memory. Eilidh approached and touched his shoulder gently. Part of the elixir's gift was to revisit past turns on our paths with wiser eyes. We will understand, brother. Taking a deep breath, Caelum told of a coming here long ago with another. His own brother, Taig, gifted but reckless. They both had attempted a grand ritual to summon a spirit of prophecy, arrogantly believing their powers matched their ambition. For a time, all proceeded smoothly, the sacred space perfectly aligned, their chants and spellcraft intertwining seamlessly. At the height of the ritual, the central stone glowed like a captured star, and a swirling mist appeared, shaping itself into a cloaked figure. It seemed they had succeeded, until the spirit began shrieking curses and vanishing in flashes, too wild to control. The unleashed energy backlashed, toppling its surrounding stones. One fell, crushing Taig's leg severely, the wounds proving ultimately fatal. Caelum had tried desperately to banish the raging spirit, but it took all his strength just to prevent further destruction. Only when 3 elders intervened was order finally restored, but at grievous cost. The elders sealed this site far from travelled ways, denying its power escape. Taig soon perished, leaving Caelum devastated and warned never to attempt such reckless magic again. Until now, those memories had remained buried. But the vision had called him back to this stone of ill omen. Moros spoke gently when the tale was done. I feared the circle vision portended tragedy, because I sensed this past pain still haunting you, Caelum. We cannot erase past wrongs, but we can prevent the repetition in this new turning. Caelum nodded slowly, the years of bitter memory clearly heavier on him now. Perhaps in my zeal, I have been blind to deeper wisdom. Your caution may prove the wiser path, old friend. The 2 men embraced. Eilidh smiled, her empathy rewarded. But more revelations awaited them when the celestial alignments drew nigh. The solstice came swiftly, the air charged with potency. At moonrise, the mist rolled through the newly erected standing stones of the magical ceremonial circle where the druids had gathered, enshrouding the monumental forms in mystery. The clans were fractious, torn between following Moros' cautious wisdom and Caelum's passionate vision. But they came in solidarity to witness the druids' conjuring. All knew this night held portentous purpose. Caelum and Moros stood with heads bowed before the central altar, while Eilidh walked the perimeter, chanting softly and scattering oils infused from their journey to each stone. The pungent aromas of earth, herbs and fire mingled with the natural scent of stone and night air. The very fabric of reality seemed to shimmer and bend here. At the sacred moment of alignment, shafts of red, violet and pure white speared through parting clouds to meet at the circle's nexus, bathing the druids in an unearthly glow. The light swirled and concealed into a towering spectral figure clad in a long cloak. Behind it, suggestions of antlers and wings shifted in and out of sight. Caelum's eyes widened. The guardian spirit beckons. Are we ready for its test? Moros gazed at the imposing apparition solemnly. We can but stand true to our faith and wisdom, brother, come what may. A voice that was breeze, stream and thunder spoke within their minds as one. I am Eros, strider between worlds. Long have I watched and waited for ones worthy to receive the circle's gifts. But mastery of magic alone does not prove one's worth. True vision lies in uniting earth and sky, mortal and eternal, through sacrifice and surrender of self for the greater good. Let this be your trial. Eros faded, and where the spirit stood, there now gleamed a luminous ring of towering crystal, caught in a perpetual dance of light. The celestial circle fully manifested. Caelum stared, enraptured by the living beauty and power before him. But Moros sensed a deeper gravity awaiting them. The spirit guardian's test had only begun. In the days that followed, the druids studied the mystic visions and prophecies left behind by previous generations who had encountered Eros. They pieced together fragmented accounts of 3 ancient trials. Each ordeal was meant to test opposing traits, Eilidh explained. The first examines conviction versus caution, the second control against impulse, and the final weighs wisdom and ambition. Passed individually, they promise mastery, but together they reveal one's limits. Caelum's restless spirit embraced the challenge. Then we shall undertake all 3 and prove ourselves worthy of the circle's power. Moros was less certain. Power alone does not make one worthy brother. Perhaps these trials serve to teach humility over might. Nonetheless, Caelum was adamant. They began 3 nights later beneath cold light of the full moon. For the trial of conviction, Eilidh watched on, guiding them. Caelum and Moros stood on opposite sides of a deep chasm, bridged only by a fallen tree. The two were blindfolded and told to cross the makeshift bridge one at a time, using faith in their convictions to guide them safely. Caelum crossed with eager confidence, never hesitating, but Moros proceeded slowly, testing each step. In the end, both passed the trial. For the trial of control, Eilidh made them stand in the celestial circle and told them to manipulate its energies, to shapeshift a single element without letting it spill into the surroundings. Caelum conjured swirling gusts, but struggled to contain them as they threatened to escalate into a gale force. Moros gently coaxed out a sprout from the earth, urging it to divide into a perfect circle. The trial of wisdom and ambition proved the most severe. Each druid was allowed one request of the circle before sealing their bond to it. Moros asked only for clarity of vision to guide his people justly. But Caelum, recalling past tragedy, implored the celestial ring to restore his brother Taig fully to life. The guardian spirit appeared, shaking its head. The cosmic web cannot be unwoven, even by one with good intent. Your brother's thread was severed, but you prolonged the pain by clinging to vain hope. I can restore life only to what remains. It gestured, and from swirling mist emerged Taig's living spirit, untethered now to mortal form. Caelum wept at the bittersweet reunion. Let go the burden of past grief and share your vision to lead others wisely. The spirit intoned before fading into starlight. The 3 trials had served their purpose, though both had faltered. Together Caelum and Moros found equilibrium, but the celestial circle's full activation required one final sacrifice. The druids and clan chieftains gathered around the glowing circle for the consecration ritual. All faces were solemn, having heard the tale of the trials. A heavy air of anticipation lay upon the assembly. Eilidh came forward, arms lifted in supplication towards the radiant ring. Hear us, Eilidh, strider between worlds. We gather beneath your celestial gaze to consecrate this sacred space, created through our blended magics and communion with elemental powers. The spectral form of the guardian appeared within the ring's center antlers and wings majestically framing its flowing, hooded robe. Your rites show promise, but as decreed, a sacrifice of selflessness must yet be made ere my blessing takes mortal shape. Its voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Caelum stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the shimmering guardian. This circle was my vision through the moonsight elixir. What I didn't tell you, friends, was in the vision I sacrificed myself. And so tonight, I offer myself as the willing sacrifice, Erios. I freely give my body and life force to empower the celestial circle and restore lasting unity to this divided land. Gasps and murmurs broke out amongst the crowd. Moros moved to intervene, but Caelum halted him with a look. This is what the moonsight elixir showed him. This was meant to be. All this time, throughout this journey, Caelum knew this would be the end point. The towering spirit slowly nodded. A worthy sacrifice freely given, but no gift or magic outweighs a life. Are you certain this is your chosen path? Caelum replied without hesitation. This is my destiny. For my people, and for the future. For the clan. For peace. I surrender myself without regret. He turned to face Eilidh and Moros one last time. Guide them well, beloved friends. Kneeling within the circle's centre, Caelum began an incantation to channel his life force into the crystalline pillars. At its climax, his body flared with blinding light, flowing outward until the entire circle became a pillar of dazzling radiance, eliciting cries of awe and fear. When it finally faded, Caelum's robe lay empty upon the charred ground. But the celestial circle now shone with a perfection only sacrifice could achieve. Caelum's essence infused the celestial magic eternally. For a long moment, no one spoke or moved, stunned by what they had just witnessed. Then Moros gently lifted Caelum's robe and held it to his heart as the first tears fell. The days after Caelum's sacrifice were a period of grieving and adjustment for the druids. Eilidh provided comfort and guidance to them and the anxious clans, counselling unity and compassion. But Moros grew ever more withdrawn. Though he had supported Caelum's choice in the end, he still felt the sting of bitter loss and regret. One misty morning, he packed supplies and departed alone on a pilgrimage to the sites sacred to Caelum, seeking peace and his own redemption. each place on the journey, he left small tokens: an owl feather, a blossom, a stone inscribed with a rune, and offered prayers for forgiveness, continued guidance from his friend, now one with the land's magic. With Moros gone, Eilidh took on leadership of the druids, and her kind wisdom and empathy led the clans toward reconciliation. She helped those who feared the celestial circle's power come to understand its true purpose. And, at Caelum's sacrifice, had hallowed the stones with enduring light. Gradually, word spread across the Highlands that the celestial circle was a point of mystical communion and prophetic visions. Pilgrims began journeying to observe the dance of stars, knowing their sight would be amplified by the circle's celestial magic. Under Eilidh's stewardship, the land entered a period of harmony unlike any before. When Moros finally returned months later, his heart had found peace. He embraced Eilidh warmly. "Thank you for guiding them when I could not," he told her with deep emotion. Together, the two old friends watched the sunset blaze gold and crimson through the celestial circle, an omen for the prosperous era ahead. Though Caelum was gone, his spirit lived on through the circle's radiance, and the united people who looked to it for guidance. Pausing by the central pillar, Moros placed a hand solemnly upon its smooth surface. "Your dream was realized, old friend," he whispered. "May your light ever shine to lead our people safely through the coming turns of the ages." The crystalline column pulsed gently beneath his palm, as if in silent reply.